The ballroom of the Marriott had been transformed into a miniature galaxy. Indigo drapes threaded with fairy lights, centerpieces that were literally levitating moons thanks to discrete magnets, and a ceiling projector spinning slow constellations across every upturned face. Our company, Celestian Analytics, threw one over-the-top gala each June to celebrate the close of the fiscal year, and I had ghostwritten every speech, balanced every budget line, and personally taste-tested 3 competing truffle canapés to get us here. I was wearing the same emerald sheath I'd bought for the occasion 2 years earlier. It still fit only because I'd been living on protein bars and adrenaline since March. My +1 was a stack of folders tucked under my chair. Quarterly reports I'd promised to annotate by 7 a.m. At 8:42 p.m. the dessert course arrived. Spheres of white chocolate mousse that cracked open to reveal raspberry galaxies. That was also the moment Grant Harlow's wife decided to turn me into the evening's entertainment. Grant ran our Denver office. His spouse, Anika, was a part-time lifestyle vlogger who believed every room she entered was her personal soundstage. She tapped her spoon against a flute until the table quieted, then flashed the smile she usually reserved for sponsored collagen ads. "Let's give credit where it's due," she began, voice syrupy. "Claire here." She gestured at me as if I'd just been auctioned off. Must have a truly singular home life. I mean, who else spends for months perfecting napkin fold geometry? "Tell us, sweetie, is there literally no one waiting for you after the spreadsheets?" Laughter rippled, thin, nervous, but loud enough to feel like sandpaper on skin. I felt my cheeks ignite. The CFO, seated to my left, suddenly found his creme brulee fascinating. Across the table, the intern who'd been hero-worshipping me all week stared, as if watching a car crash in slow motion. Anika wasn't done. "I bet your plants have names," she cooed. "Do you schedule their watering like KPI meetings? Does your cat have a Gantt chart?" More laughter. A few relieved titters from people grateful the target wasn't them. Grant tried to catch her eye, but she was already raising her phone to snap a candid of my mortified face. Content, presumably, for tomorrow's behind-the-scenes of corporate glam vlog. I forced a smile, the kind that feels like swallowing tinfoil. "Actually, Anika," I said, voice steady, "no cat. Just a dog." She waited, poised for further self-deprecation. Instead, I reached for the microphone the CEO had used earlier, still on the table, battery warm, and stood. The constellations kept drifting across the ceiling. I felt like I was speaking inside a snow globe someone had shaken once and set down hard. "You're right that I've been here until midnight most nights," I began. "But the reason isn't lack of love life, it's lack of lawsuit." The word landed like a dropped tray of silverware. Anika's eyebrow arched. She hadn't rehearsed this plot twist. I tapped my phone, and the giant LED wall behind the stage flickered to life. Up popped an email thread, time-stamped, attorney seat, between Grant and a Denver subcontractor. In it, Grant authorized a minor data scrape that, read carefully, violated 3 federal privacy statutes. The subcontractor balked. Grant pressed, promising, "My wife's influencer reach could bury you if you breathe a word." I advanced to the next slide. A spreadsheet showing the $2.3 million in projected fines we'd owe if the scrape became public. Next, a selfie Anika had posted weeks ago. Grant in the background, whiteboard behind him listing client social security numbers she'd accidentally broadcast to 127,000 followers. The post had been deleted within minutes. I'd captured it because I back up the internet for a living. The room went vacuum quiet. You could hear the chocolate spheres cracking open like tiny planets imploding. I lowered the mic. 4 months of late nights, Anika? I was auditing Denver's compliance trail, so the SEC won't shutter us by September. My singular dedication just saved your husband's job and your family's only revenue stream, while you were monetizing brunch. Grant's face matched the raspberry coulis. Anika's phone slipped, clattering against her plate. The CFO, no longer fascinated by dessert, slowly straightened his tie. The way men do when the lifeboat they thought was hidden suddenly inflates in front of everyone. I wasn't finished. I clicked again. A photo of a golden retriever wearing a service dog vest, sitting beside a hospital bed. "This is Riley," I said. For the past year, he's spent Tuesdays and Thursdays at Denver Children's Oncology, comforting kids who've lost their hair to chemo. I train therapy dogs on weekends, something my empty calendar somehow accommodates. Tonight he's working the late shift because the 12-year-old, who always reads him Harry Potter chapters, got moved to hospice this morning. My voice cracked on the word hospice. The constellation lights blurred. No one noticed the tear except the intern, who suddenly looked like she wanted to grow up to be me instead of just richer. I set the mic down. "Enjoy the galaxies," I said and sat. For 3 full seconds, silence. Then the CEO, who hates public sentiment like cats hate baths, stood and clapped once sharp. The room followed, tentative then thunderous. Anika lifted her hands as if to join, realized her nails were now the color of shame, and dropped them. Grant tried a grin. "Claire, I raised one finger, wait, and turned back to Anika. "By the way," I said gently, "your channel's biggest sponsor? Their parent company is the subcontractor you threatened. Expect a termination email before breakfast. Maybe fold that into tomorrow's content." The applause faded into an uneasy rustle. Corporate applause, half admiration, half actuarial calculation of who would still have a chair when the music stopped. Dessert resumed, but the mousse tasted metallic now. People whispered, eyes flicking toward the Harlows the way onlookers eye a fender bender they're grateful they weren't in. Grant excused himself to make a call. Anika followed, clutching her handbag like a life preserver made of snakes. The CFO leaned over. "Remind me never to poker face against you," he murmured. I shrugged. "Numbers don't bluff," I said. "They just wait." By 9:15 the gala's playlist had shifted from cosmic jazz to something more grounded. Fleetwood Mac, the anthem of divorces finalized in rental cars. I gathered my folders, preparing to slip out. The intern caught me at the elevator bank. "Ms. Bennett," she breathed, "that was epic. How did you stay calm?" I considered telling her about the nights I'd practiced that speech in the mirror, imagining a dozen Anikas, each one armed with a smirk. Instead I said, "Preparation is just respect you pay yourself in advance." The doors opened. I stepped inside. As they closed, I saw her jot the line in her phone, already dressing it in Instagram pastels. Downstairs, the hotel lobby smelled of coffee and dawn shuttle departures. I checked my watch, 9:30. Riley would be finishing his shift in 15 hours. I had just enough time to drive to Denver, sleep in the on-call room, and take him for sunrise fetch before the kids woke. On the way out, I bought 2 bouquets from the concierge. One of sunflowers for the nurses, one of tiny blue asteroids the color of hospital gowns. Outside, the city's real night sky showed only a handful of stars, washed out by neon and necessity. I looked up anyway, found the Big Dipper, and made a quick, silent wish. Not for revenge, not even for justice. Just for beds that stayed empty of fear. For dogs who knew when to rest their chins on small knees, for spreadsheets clean enough to let a company keep funding therapy animal programs instead of legal defense funds. Behind me, the hotel's revolving door spat out Anika. She stood on the curb, Uber app glowing like a coal in her palm. She caught my eye, opened her mouth, closed it. I lifted the asteroids in silent offering. After a beat, she shook her head. Not refusal, more bewilderment at finding herself in a narrative she no longer controlled. Her car pulled up, she climbed in, face illuminated a moment by the dome light, smudged mascara, the last trace of influencer armor. I walked the opposite direction, shoes clicking against pavement that knew nothing of constellations or fines or viral posts. Only that every orbit eventually returns you to the place you started, changed by the distance you've traveled. Somewhere on the 15-hour drive, the sun would rise, Riley would wag his tail, and a 12-year-old would read another chapter about wizards who refused to let death have the final word. Numbers don't bluff, I thought again. But sometimes, if you stack them right, they open enough space for mercy. And mercy, I decided, was the galaxy worth folding into next year's napkins.